Hello friends, welcome back. I'm reading passages from the Peticha, Chokhmat Kabbalah. The last video, my battery died, so I got cut off in the middle of teaching, so apologies for that. We'll pick up in chapter 1, part 2. The last line I read, learning from holy books of people who have attained union with God ignites in us an inner yearning that inspires us to live more spiritual lives. Learning from holy books and being in the presence of holy people are so important in Judaism because this is how we actually transform. It is like this with all the created beings in the world. Commentary. All the created beings in the world, including the various types of minerals, plants, and animals, all come from the Creator's thought of creation called Ein Sof. There's no aspect of reality that is not included in this thought. There's no aspect of reality that is not included in this thought. Therefore, the soul of an animal is also comprised of light and vessel. In other words, shefa and particular measure and a particular measure of desire to receive. Right? So the soul of an animal is also comprised of light and vessel, meaning the shefa, the light, and a particular measure of the desire to receive. The soul of an animal also progressively descends from the thought of creation through all the spiritual worlds until arriving in the material world. This means that at its source, the soul of an animal is in a state of holiness and connected to a high spiritual root. At its source, the soul of an animal is in a state of holiness and connected to a high spiritual root. The spiritual level of animals, however, does not depend on the animals, but rather on humanity. Interesting. When we ascend in holiness, the souls of animals ascend with us. When we descend in holiness, the animal also goes down. Interesting. Not something I remember reading in the last translation, so something new to me. The entire differentiation between the upper spiritual worlds and this world is that as long as the desire to receive included in the divine shefa is not materialized in its final form. Commentary. Its final form means that the desire to receive has become coarse to its maximum degree. It wants to swallow up everything for its own self-benefit and has no comprehension of the desire to give. It is considered to be within the spiritual worlds above this world. When the desire to receive becomes materialized in its final form, it is considered to be in this world. Commentary. This is not speaking about the materialized physical world of planet Earth, but rather, quote-unquote, this world, Olam Hazeh, is a spiritual concept. When the soul reaches its lowest state, meaning that the desire to receive reaches its most coarse state, then it is in the soul state called this world, quote-unquote, this world, quote-unquote, Olam Hazeh. We can also say the opposite. A person living in the physical world with elevated consciousness is in the upper spiritual worlds. So this world is a spiritual concept, not the physical world of planet Earth. Okay, summary of this section. The desire to receive and the shefa, called vessel and light progressively descend from the thought of creation by way of the spiritual worlds until arriving at this world, Olam Hazeh. Olam Hazeh means the lowest state in which the desire to receive becomes coarse to its maximum degree and the light is reduced to a minimum. Okay, part 3. Section 3, Section 3. Section 3, the progression of the desire to receive until it attains its final form in this world, Olam Hazeh, corresponds to the 4 aspects of the 4-letter divine name. The 4 letters of the divine name Yud and He and Vav and He encompass all the reality, with no aspect of reality being left out at all. These 4 aspects are generally described as the 10 Sfirot, the tree of life, Chokhmah, Binah, Tiferet, Malchut, and their source. They are the 10 Sfirot because the Sfira of Tiferet includes 6 Sfirot, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. The source is called Keter. The main aspects, however, are Chokhmah, Binah, Tiferet, and Malchut. Remember this. These are the 4 spiritual worlds called Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. The world of Asiyah includes within it Olam Hazeh. There is no creature in this world that was not newly created in Ein Sof, meaning the Creator's thought of creation, the thought to give pleasure to the created beings, as was said before. Every created being necessarily and immediately includes a light and vessel, meaning a measure of shefa, of the light, together with the vessel, a desire to receive that light, that shefa. The measure of shefa comes forth from the essence of God, something from something. The desire to receive the shefa is new, something from nothing. As we said before, in order that this desire to receive will come to its final form, it needs to descend with the shefa by way of the 4 spiritual worlds, Asilut, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. Then the created being comprised of vessel and light is finished. Then the created being comprised of vessel and light is finished. The vessel is the body, and the light is the life within it. The vessel is the body, and the light is the life within it. So, we'll do a little bit of commentary as well, just because we've got some time here. The progression of the desire to receive until it attains its final form in this world, Olam Hazeh, corresponds to the 4 aspects of the 4-letter divine name, also known as the Tetragrammaton, the name Yud He and Vav He. The 4 letters of the divine name, Yud He and Vav He, encompass all of reality with no aspect of reality being left out at all. The 4 letters allude to the 4 all-inclusive aspects of the desire to receive, described above as the aspects of mineral, plant, animal, and human. There's also a 5th aspect alluded to by the tip of the letter Yud, the first letter. This is an aspect of our desire to receive that is even higher than the human level of the desire to receive. These 4 aspects are generally described as the 10 Sfirot, Chokhmah, Binah, Tiferet, Malchut, and their source. How are they 10 Sfirot? This is only 5. Answer. They are 10 Sfirot because the Sfira of Tiferet includes 6 Sfirot, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. The source is called Keter. The main aspects, however, are called Chokhmah, Binah, Tiferet, and Malchut. The four essential aspects are Chokhmah, Binah, Tiferet, and Malchut, the six Sfirot. Within Tiferet are details of this one Sfirah. The Sfirah of Keter, the highest level, is not included in the essential aspects of the Sfirot because even though Keter is the source of the light below, Keter transcends our comprehension. Keter is also connected with the tip of the Yud in the first letter. The Sfirot correspond to the four letters of Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. Yud corresponds to Chokhmah, Hey corresponds to Bina, Vav corresponds to Tiferet, and Hey corresponds to Malchut. Since Keter is beyond our comprehension and can only be understood relatively, it does not have a corresponding letter in the divine name. Keter corresponds again to the tip of the Yud. These are the four spiritual worlds called Asilut, Biriya, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. The worlds and the Sfirot are both spiritual levels. What is the difference? The difference is between general aspects and their details. For example, the physical world has many components: land, ocean, sky, and so on, with each of these components comprised of many details. This has roots in spiritual reality. The general spiritual levels are called worlds, and their details are called Sfirot. So the general spiritual levels are called worlds, and their details are called Sfirot. A level means a level of experiencing God. Everything spoken about in this wisdom is about experiencing God. Everything spoken about in this wisdom is about experiencing God. There are, generally speaking, four main levels of experiencing God called the four worlds. Why are they called worlds? The Hebrew word for world, olam, also means hidden. They're called worlds because the light of God is progressively hidden in them. In Atzilut, the light shines strongly. In Bria, the light is less revealed. Yetzirah, the light is even less revealed. In Asiyah, the light is revealed only minimally. Each world contains the four essential Sfirot: Chokhmah, Binah, Tiferet, and Malchut. The Sfirot in each world are specific levels of that world. The Sfirot in each world are specific levels of that world. The Sfirot of Atzilut all have the characteristics of the Sfirah Chokhmah. The Sfirot of Bria all have the characteristics of the Sfirah Binah. The Sfirot of Yetzirah all have characteristics of the Sfirah of Tiferet. The Sfirot of Asiyah all have characteristics of the last Sfirah, Malchut. The world of Asiyah includes within it Olam Hazeh. The lowest level of a spiritual world is the highest level of the world beneath it. The lowest level of a spiritual world is the highest level of the world beneath it. The world of Asiyah is the lowest spiritual world, and its lowest aspect touches Olam Hazeh, this world. Olam Hazeh means receiving in order to receive, the lowest form of receiving. We always need to remember that the spiritual worlds are not places in physical space, but rather states of consciousness. These worlds are not physical spaces and places, they are states of consciousness. There's no creature in this world that was not newly created in Ein Sof Baruch Hu, meaning the Creator's thought of creation, the thought to give pleasure to the created beings. Commentary. All the created beings are born in the Creator's thought of creation, called, quote, the desire to receive goodness, the desire to give goodness to the created beings, end quote. The desire to give goodness to the created beings. What goodness does God desire to give? As there is no pleasure greater and more wonderful than experiencing God, the essence of the goodness that God desires to give is experiencing God. The essence of the goodness that God desires to give is experiencing God. That is the goodness. The Creator desires to give goodness and has no desire to receive at all. In contrast, the essence of the created being is the desire to receive. In order for this opposite creation to come from the Creator, there's a gradual process of detachment. This is what I call the involution. The first stage is the thought of creation called Ein Sof. God's desire to give goodness brings into being all the souls in complete perfection. After Ein Sof, the created being descends through the spiritual worlds until arriving at Olam Hazeh, this world. In the beginning, the desire to receive is united with the desire to give. Descent through the spiritual worlds means that little by little the desire to give diminishes, along with the revelation of God, and the desire to receive increases. This causes the created being to become distanced from the Creator. At the end of this process, the created being has no desire to give at all, and only a desire to receive. This is called Olam Hazeh, and we are born from this aspect. Although the type of pleasure we desire changes over time, we desire pleasure at every stage of our lives. Question: why does creation need to come from the Creator in a gradual process of detachment? God can do anything. Why can God create beings directly without these gradual stages? Answer: of course God is able, but this progression is for our benefit. The stages are like rungs on a ladder, designed for our souls to be able to ascend. The more rungs there are, the more easily we can ascend. Yeah. Actually, we'll just finish the section because it's almost done. Every created being necessarily and immediately includes light and vessel, meaning a measure of shefa, of light, together with a desire to receive that shefa, the vessel. We need to remember that shefa means experiencing God. Shefa means experiencing God. The light means experiencing God. So every created being necessarily and immediately includes the light, the experiencing of God, and the vessel, the desire to receive that experience of God. Then the created being, comprised of vessel and light, is finished. The vessel is the body and the light is the life within it. Commentary. This happens specifically in Olam Hazeh, where there are no sparks of wanting to give, and the created being only desires to receive. Now there is an actual creation, completely distant from the Creator. We then need to work to come close to the Creator. The work includes aspects of heart and mind, the spiritual work of giving and believing, of heart, of giving, and of mind, of believing. Summary of this section. The light and vessel descend by way of the four letters Yud, He, and Vav He. The shefa and the vessel progressively descend from the thought of creation through the four worlds, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, until arriving at Olam Hazeh, where the desire to receive is the most manifest. Okay, super. We just got through a whole section. Finished section 2 and did the entirety of section 3. And God willing, we'll start with section 4 tomorrow night. Have a wonderful night.